Welcome, action movie aficionados. It's Jack, and we're about to embark on an epic journey through Damage, released in 2009. Hold on to your seats because this video contains explosive spoilers. Get ready, and let's jump into the heart-pounding action. The film begins with John Brickner being granted parole and leaving prison. During a conversation with the judge, we gain insights into his backstory. He had spent 4 years of a 7-year sentence behind bars, earning early release due to his exceptional conduct and guilt over taking a man's life. John relocates to Seattle and secures a job in construction under an unsavory boss. One evening, while at a bar, he intervenes to protect the bartender from a couple of intoxicated men. He forces one of the men to apologize and promptly ejects them from the premises. His noble act catches the eye of the bar's owner, leading to his second job as a doorman. Following a montage with the music of the early 2000s, we witness John juggling his construction job, enduring mistreatment from his employer, and handling unruly patrons at the bar. His impressive skills draw the attention of a stranger who offers him a job, which John initially declines. Later, while on the construction site, John is confronted by Veronica, the widow of the man he had killed. She reveals that she advocated for his parole not because of his remorseful letters, but because her 8-year-old daughter urgently needs a heart transplant. Holding him responsible for her husband's death, she demands that John finance the operation, which costs $250,000. John, a rugged man with a kind heart, calculates his meager earnings in his room and hides them in an air vent. That night, Frankie, a barmaid, tries to boost his spirits by complimenting her appearance, which leads John to inquire about the person who offered him the job. Frankie directs him to Reno, who organizes underground fight clubs. Despite the potential for significant earnings, John initially refuses to participate in the illicit fights. The next day, his prejudiced boss unjustly fires him, despite his dedication and integrity. In an ironic twist, his boss suffers a heart attack, and John saves his life while waiting for an ambulance. That night, John visits Veronica to inform her that he can't afford her daughter's operation. Undeterred, Veronica shares John's prison letters filled with offers of help. The noise awakens Sarah, Veronica's daughter, who introduces John to her pet, touching his already soft heart. Overwhelmed by the situation, John decides to explore the world of underground fighting. He seizes an opportunity to substitute for a fighter who has passed out, despite suffering a nasty bite. True to his character, he shares his winnings with the fighter who couldn't compete, reaffirming his altruistic nature. The next morning, John returned from his morning run to find Reno and Frankie already in his apartment. They had discovered his hidden savings and explained that more funds were needed for John to continue participating in fights. These funds would have been sufficient if John hadn't shared his winnings with his previous opponent. They decided to seek out an individual known as the Deacon, a sort of financier. Reno tried to convince the Deacon to support John, highlighting his talent. However, the Deacon was skeptical about John's reliability, expressing concerns about long-term assurance. John requested a private conversation with the Deacon, and after a lukewarm religious metaphor from the Deacon, it became evident that he could be persuaded for the right price. To raise the required funds, Reno pawned his father's valuable cufflinks, and they approached another man named Nestor. Reno owed a debt to Nestor, who had grown impatient waiting for his money. Consequently, Nestor ordered his men to kill Reno. John intervened and proposed a fight with a $10,000 wager on the line. Nestor accepted the challenge, leading to an intense but not particularly engaging fight between John and Nestor's fighter. They fought amidst a backdrop of menacing dogs ready to attack if they strayed too close. Fortunately, John emerged victorious, allowing them to accumulate sufficient funds to approach the Deacon. A call for Veronica prompted Frankie to question her identity. It was revealed that Frankie associated with Reno because he had once saved her life. However, John seemed indifferent and instead inquired about what Reno had pawned. Later, John visited Veronica at the hospital, where her daughter Sarah, who had collapsed, was now admitted. He assured Veronica that he was diligently working to secure the funds for Sarah's operation. Veronica, playing the part of a stressed mother, relied on unhealthy habits instead of proactively trying to raise money, leaving the responsibility to John. Back at their residence, Frankie accused Reno of taking risks without adequate planning and mentioned a person named Veltz. Reno asked her to refrain from probing, claiming that he had just managed to shake off Nestor and Trini. Frankie, who had taken a liking to John, argued that he wasn't merely a source of money. Reno became frustrated and revealed to Frankie that John had been imprisoned for murder. He asked her if she believed John could be one of the good guys while emphasizing their need for him to settle their debt. Unbeknownst to them, John heard this but chose not to react. The film then transitioned to a series of fights in which John participated and emerged victorious. In one scene, John found Frankie alone at home and questioned her about her skills with a needle, wondering why she hadn't pursued medical school. Frankie countered with questions about his assumptions. Meanwhile, Reno was accosted by Veltz's men during a card game and brutally beaten up. He needed to repay the $150,000 he owed Veltz within a week, or else Frankie would be in danger. Reno subsequently arranged another fight with Nestor's man. The match was brutal, and as John endured several hits, Frankie wanted to stop the fight. However, John endured the blows, encouraged by Reno to unleash his fury. Eventually, John delivered a decisive, bloody blow and emerged victorious. While celebrating afterward, John commented that the fight's reward should have been six figures. However, Reno reminded him that they still had to wait. When John received a garbled call from Veronica, he immediately rushed to her apartment, where he found a letter notifying Veronica that her request for an organ donor had been rejected. John discovered Veronica in the bathroom, having slashed her wrists in a tragic suicide attempt. He hurriedly brought her to the hospital, and as they waited, Frankie inquired about Veronica. John revealed the entire backstory during this time, and scars on Frankie's wrists were shown, suggesting that she had once attempted suicide and had been saved by Reno. John visited Veronica in her hospital room, urging her not to give up hope. She responded by mentioning that her heart could have been given to Sarah, a flawed argument as she could have chosen to be a living donor instead of resigning herself to die. Regardless, John gave her his word that he would secure the necessary funds. Reno arranged another match for Nestor's fighter with a wager of $150,000. When Reno was confronted by Veltz's henchmen in the restroom, he assured them he would repay the debt after the fight. Frankie spotted the men and was upset with Reno for not disclosing his plans. The fight ensued, and John emerged victorious. However, Nestor demanded the fight be a death match. John refused and surrendered the match. Frankie hurried over to comfort John while Reno received a harsh beating from Veltz's men. On the drive home, John learned about the debt and criticized Reno for withholding this information. Reno dismissed it, saying it wasn't John's concern. Frankie interjected, revealing that the debt was hers, and Reno had assumed it. Some days later, while dining at a restaurant, John noticed a vehicle that had been frequently stopping nearby. He got into the car and was taken to a wealthy elderly man who was indebted to John for saving his son-in-law, the construction worker's life. John informed him about Sarah's heart transplant and requested funding for a high-stakes fight. It was revealed that this man was Veltz himself, and he presented John with an ultimatum: either wipe out Reno's debt or fund John's fight to raise money for the transplant. John chose to clear Reno's debts. In the subsequent scene, John took Veronica home, and she began to share her life story with the man who had killed her husband. As she smoked a cigarette, she declared her daughter as her greatest achievement, even though she had given up her dreams to become a mother. She also reassured John that she knew her husband's death had been an act of self-defense. John then paid a visit to Deacon, questioning why Deacon had shared the parable of the unforgiving servant with him. The deacon appeared troubled and confessed that he was unable to assist John. Back at home, John prepared to leave when Reno arrived to express his gratitude for John settling his debts. Frankie disclosed that Reno had rescued her from Veltz, even paying for her after Veltz had left her nearly dead following a suicide attempt. Reno received a call announcing that the high-stakes Timmins fight was set, funded by an anonymous benefactor. The group was elated. The fight proved to be John's most challenging yet, and when the cage gave way, plummeting him into a basement, it appeared that he had been killed. However, covered in an unidentified substance, John rose and requested to finish the fight. He ultimately triumphed, and Reno dubbed him the Damage. He managed to secure a donor for Veronica's daughter and also returned Reno's father's cufflinks, which he had retrieved from the pawn shop. They shared an awkward embrace before setting off together, restoring a sense of normalcy in their lives.